What you believe failure means changes what it does to you. This isn't a feel-good idea. It's the difference between a person who gets knocked down and comes back sharper and a person who gets knocked down and never recovers. Same event, completely different outcome. And the variable isn't toughness. It's how the failure gets processed internally. My name is Josh Terry. I help business owners work through the emotional, mental, and performance issues that hold them back from making better decisions and taking more action. If you'd like to work with me, you can book a call in the description below or go to apply.joshterryplays.com. And one of the most common things I work on with people is their relationship with failure. Not whether they fail, everyone does that, but what happens inside them when they do. Because at a certain level of ambition, the fear of failure becomes more destructive than failure itself. It quietly narrows your risk tolerance, makes your decisions more conservative, and slowly kills the thing that made you capable in the first place. If that pattern sounds familiar, this is about how to change it. Here's how failure becomes destructive. Failure breaks people when they believe they are their results. Not my strategy didn't work, but I'm the kind of person whose strategies don't work. Not that pitch didn't land, but I'm bad at this and it can't be fixed. When someone comes home from a failed negotiation, the person who suffers the most isn't the one thinking about the lost deal or the next steps. It's the person thinking about what the failure says about them. That the mistake wasn't situational, it was a reflection of some deeper inadequacy. From that perspective, failure doesn't feel like part of the process. It feels like evidence of a permanent limitation. Something to hide, not something to use. And the person who comes home from that same rejection thinking about what they learned, using the information to adjust their approach, feels more confident after the failure than before it. Same event, completely different internal experience. The difference is whether the failure gets processed as information about the world or as information about you. And here's the frame that makes separation possible. The scientific method. It's the most useful tool I know for thinking about failure. Observe the world, form an idea about how it works. Test the idea and see if you were right. If you were wrong, your model of the world just got more accurate. That's not failure. That's success. The scientific method isn't an identity. It's a tool for navigating the world under the assumption that you're going to be wrong a lot. And the people you've watched pursue their goals relentlessly, the ones who love failure and seem to succeed more than should be possible, they see the world this way, whether they use that language or not. Edison said he didn't fail 10,000 times. He found 10,000 ways the light bulb wouldn't work. The light bulb wasn't a process of 1,000 failed attempts. It was an invention with 1,000 steps. Michael Jordan said the reason he succeeded was because of how many times he'd failed. He became a champion because of how willing he was to miss a shot. These aren't motivational quotes. They're descriptions of a specific cognitive orientation where failure feeds the process instead of attacking the person. If failure informs your identity, it crushes you. If it informs your process, it enables you. And here's the most honest part that most failure advice skips. Not all failure is useful. Some failure is genuinely destructive, and pretending otherwise is dangerous. If a failure is so large that you can't recover from it, financially, physically, psychologically, it's not information. It's just damage. You have to learn to seek discomfort without destruction. Putting yourself in enough danger to grow is one of the most powerful tools in existence. Putting yourself in so much danger that it harms you is just stupid. And then another point is scarcity changes everything about how this works. When you have resources, a safety net, people around you, failure just feels like data. You can afford to learn from it. When you're operating with no margin, every failure feels existential. Not because you're weak, but because it's actually existential. Think about two people who get a flat tire with no spare and no jack. One has money in the bank, is driving with a friend on their day off, and the whole thing is an inconvenience. The lesson learned is keep a spare tire. The other person is paycheck to paycheck, already late to a job where the boss said one more time and you're done. And this person has no one to call. Same flat tire, but the lesson is technically the same, but one situation is a learning experience and the other is a catastrophe. So stressful, you can barely process the lesson at all. I grew up watching this play out. Wealthy kids make mistakes, absorb the hit, learn from it, and move on. Kids from scarce backgrounds make the same mistake and never recover. Not because they're less capable, but because they don't have the infrastructure to turn failure into education. So as you build resources for yourself, learn to create that infrastructure for yourself. Give yourself a safety net. Make sure you're not betting everything on a single outcome. Treat yourself like someone you have responsibility for, which means putting yourself in positions where failure teaches instead of destroys. Which brings us to the most practical piece. If failure is currently breaking you, if you're in a season where setbacks are piling up and each one feels worse, you can't just decide to love failure. You have to change the conditions around it. The first thing to do is build abundance somewhere. If you're failing at the thing you care about most, make sure you're succeeding somewhere else. The person who is winning in some area of their life can absorb a loss in another. The person who is losing everywhere has no foundation to stand on. So the stronger you feel, the stronger you are. And the more abundant you feel, the more abundant you become. So create a situation where you're winning, even if it's in a completely different domain, because it makes you more capable of handling the losses in the domain that matters most. The second is to scale the failures down. If the thing you're working on will crush you if it doesn't work, it's not the right place to start building your tolerance. Give yourself a version small enough that a failure is genuinely informative rather than devastating. Try it, see what happens, adjust, and try again with variation. Then use that same process on something more challenging. The human mind isn't designed to fail constantly with no wins to offset it. So create an environment where you can win, and use those wins to build the psychological capacity to handle bigger failures over time. And the last piece is the most powerful. One of the best things you can do about failure is to change your goal. If your goal is to make a light bulb on the first try and it doesn't work, then you've failed. But if your goal is to invent a light bulb eventually, that same result is step 47 of a longer process. It's not a failure, it's information on the overall project. Playing a song correctly is a different goal than learning to play a song. The first one turns every wrong note into a failure. The second one turns every wrong note into practice. Running a successful business isn't the same goal as building a business that gets better every year. The first creates constant pressure to do it right. The second creates permission to be wrong in productive ways. And when you can't change the goal, change your timeline. Stretch the horizon out far enough that the individual setbacks stop feeling catastrophic. When you're thinking in terms of a 10-year trajectory, a bad quarter is just noise. When you're thinking in terms of this quarter, a bad quarter feels like the end. Make your goal something that makes your failures useful. Frame the timeline so that individual setbacks become data instead of judgment. Failure needs to be three things to be useful. It needs to be detached from your identity, informative, and something you can recover from. If you can set your life up so that those three conditions are met, if you can separate who you are from just what happened and extract the lesson and absorb the hit, you will learn faster than anyone around you. And the fear that's been quietly running your decisions will lose its grip. If this resonates, go to joshterryplays.com and book a call with me. I work with people whose relationship with failure has become the thing holding them back, where the fear of being wrong has gotten more powerful than the drive to move forward. We figure out where the identity got fused to the results, and we build a framework where failure works for you instead of against you. Let's make sure failure is something you learn from, not something you hide.